Good evening, everyone, and welcome to AR101. Tonight is going to be a fun night. We're talking to all of you out there that are wondering what adventure racing is, and tonight is the beginner's guide to adventure racing. So I'm Doug. I am the owner of AR.Watch and the host of AR101 that is brought to you by Warrior Racing. And so without further ado, I'm going to kick it to Jeff to talk about what Warrior has on the agenda. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we've getting about halfway through the year. We're 6 months into the year, and it's been a busy first year. We've had 7 events in the first 6 months, and then we're going to kind of slow down a little bit in the summer and then pick back up here in the fall with a whole bunch of different events. Right now, we have the Hogback weekend that's coming up next weekend. We've got, yes, there it is, the Hogback. We have a lot of different recipes planned. I got a local chef there that's going to come out and cook for us. So it's going to be a really cool event in the sense that people get to hang out Friday night, race Saturday, hang out Saturday night. We have a karaoke machine, by the way, for Ron and Chip. They don't know it. Well, if they see this, they'll know it now. They requested that so they can have a good time Saturday night. I can't wait to see what happens there. And then again, wake up in the morning. And then race an 8-hour race on Saturday. I had a pre-race meeting with both designers, Jen and Josh, and the courses are amazing. They're 2 opposite courses. One is completely in the different area where the first one is. There are no overlapping checkpoints. You get 2 different races on Saturday and Sunday. So I think we'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be kind of cool to have an entire weekend of racing, and we're really excited about that. Then we dive into July. We take this huge break, and I call it a huge break. It's a month and a half before we have to get ready for Alaska. So we got the puffies in from our distributor. So that's the Expedition Alaska Puffy. It's a lot different from the C2C. It's a lot thicker because we're in Alaska. It's got a different type hood for wind compared to the puffies that we normally put out for Colorado or C2C. So those are really already in, and we're going to have those available. So the route that we chose for a design, which has already been 100% approved by the Forest Service, such great job working with them. I kind of met one of the forest people when I was on the show, and that's the actual lead person that's handling our permit. So that was kind of a bonus. But the route from Seward up to Anchorage, or vice versa, is the train route. That's how they shuttle the gold from the mountains down to the port. And so the racers are going to carry a gold bar with them the entire race. So they're going to take it from Seward all the way to the finish line. That is their checkpoint. That's the last checkpoint if they can get the gold bar to the finish line. So then afterwards, they'll be able to keep this gold bar, which will have the logo on it, and show that they completed the first ever Expedition Alaska. Outside of that, that's pretty cool. So outside of that, we have the Bear coming up in August, and then we dive into the fall with some really great races, both in Georgia and in Florida.
Well, awesome. Like, listen, that's a lot of really good stuff. And I mean, having you on this panel is actually really great too, because like you're still doing innovative stuff, even though you've been race directing for years. I mean, with the thing next weekend with Hogback, having 2 separate races that are vastly different and having a whole weekend for people, and basically just having a whole basic, like weekend of adventure racing.
Hey,
welcome my son to the
yes.
the video cast tonight. This is Dax. Say hi, buddy.
Hi.
They're actually going to do their first adventure race with me next weekend at the Rev 3 7 Benz race.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
So are you excited? Excited to do adventure racing? He's been listening to all the beginner's guide stuff that I've been putting out. So I think he's ready to go. You ready? All right. Good night, buddy.
Cool.
Go back upstairs.
Let's beat some of those hunter records. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
Now, yeah. Doug, you're fairly new.
Cry less.
Yeah, you're fairly new to the sport, and it is, since I've been in it, it's gone through so many different changes. It's gone through so many different renditions. And I think that's what's great about RDs like myself and Nick and Jesse stuff, is that, we try to modify the sport to fit a broader audience. It really, back in the beginning days, it was only for the insane, period. And so now it's evolving into something else. Mark Harris experimented with the GPS. I mean, as long as us race directors keep throwing darts at the dartboard, we're going to hit something sooner or later.
Yeah. Well, let me introduce everybody who's on the panel because I
Yeah.
want to do that. So let's kick it to Alan first. So it's really funny because Alan and I have a really funny story about how we met that we'll probably get into later. But Alan, tell us who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Alan Wagner. I think most people know me as the race director for Broad Run Off Road. We've been doing races for 10 years. This is actually going to be our 10th anniversary this coming fall. But predominantly the last 5 years, I think most people know us. We do two specific adventure races, the Spring Bloom and the Fall Foliage adventure races up here in Northern Virginia. I mean, the short story of it is Jeff just mentioned Mark Harris. I mean, we have the Shenandoah Epic 24-hour. There's the Break the Habit. There's Rev 3 doing 50-hour. Everybody was kind of doing the big races. So when we first got into adventure racing, we decided to focus predominantly on beginner racers. So we did just a 5-hour race, just a 4-hour race. We've now started adding in 10s and 12s, and we've got a 14 coming up later this year. But we always kind of focus on the beginner. So that's why I'm really happy to be a part of this panel.
Awesome. And speaking of Rev 3, let's go to Nick.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Nick Hurff, so I'm one of the race directors for Rev 3 Endurance. And yeah, I've been adventure racing for a few years. I'm newer into the race directing. But yeah, we tend to typically we had traditionally catered to beginner racers as far as bridging the gap into longer races. So our courses were typically easier. And as Jeff had said, as we're experimenting, what we're trying to do now is provide courses that allow a variety of experience levels and ability levels. So at our recent event, we had a New River Rush 50-hour challenge, which typically is an expedition race. It's very challenging. However, we create the short course version so that way all abilities can get through. And so that's kind of where we're at, is trying to make all our races so it can be both challenging to the most elite racers while also catering to those that are either slower or, inexperienced and newer to the sport.
Well, and so I get to experience all the East Coast stuff, right? Because I'm over here, but we also have the Midwest represented. So tell us about Off-Road Rage.
All right. Hey there. I'm Tiara, and this is my dad, Ben. He is usually the oldest racer at most of the races that we go do. And I think we kind of address the adventure racing from a different idea, as that most of the race directors have been really, really good at adventure racing, but we have always been like the mid-pack, back of the pack teams. And so for us, we are able to see both sides, all sides of it, and kind of design courses that are going to get people through. And we sometimes have like the elite checkpoints, but then we take it down to, okay, you can short course and you're still going to finish this course. But we've also been incorporating 2-hour courses into all of our races, which are family fun courses. The target area is families or maybe people trying it out for the first time. And our goal is to keep it affordable, because a lot of people entering the sport, it's a very expensive sport. If you have to start off with, mountain bikes, and you always want, N+1, you want the next bike, and you want, all the gear and stuff. So the entry level 2-hour races are all on foot. Like, you're literally showing up with some tennis shoes and a water bottle, and that's all you need to go out there and race. And it's always basically a trekking section of the 6-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour races we're doing. So they're seeing the big teams out there doing the 24-hour, and they're still out there with their kiddos. And so it's kind of just a fun overlap of, oh my gosh, look at them, but we could do that someday. So it's been great, and we are having really, really good attendance. Like, we allow all the way up until race day. It's $10 a pop. Like, you show up, we give you a map, you go off with your kids. And then a couple times a year, we'll have racers 18 and under. It's free. We like to do that at a couple of our races, because most of the time when you're bringing families in, if you have a family of 4, that can add up really quick. And we know it because we've brought like, my kids with us. And then when we're racing with, families, that price gets really high. So we're trying to approach it from not only bringing beginners in, but also making it affordable for beginners to join us too. So we have the Midwest Championship race coming up. It's the first time for that here. It's going to be at Canopolis Lake in Kansas. We have the 24-hour course, and then we have the 6-hour course, and we're also going to throw a 2-hour trekking section in there too for everyone. So yeah, we're just trying to really, like the Midwest, I mean, we have really good numbers, and what we do have is consistency. Like our racers come back every single race. They don't miss. It's like a family affair. They get really excited to see everyone, and we have like a really great little family going on here. So we just want to bring in that camaraderie to adventure racing, that you get back to the roots of adventure racing when we first started several years ago. And that's what it was all about, was the family feel and getting to know everyone. And I feel like as our races have grown and they've gotten longer, we kind of miss that, just being able to have everyone around. So what we're also doing is one TA. We have, the hub and spoke system of racing, so that these racers are seeing each other all day long. They're going to come into the same TA. They're going to see us at every single stop. And so I think that's bridging the gap too, because if you're out there like we are, like at the back of the pack for 24 hours and you don't see anyone, it's really discouraging.
Well, and that's what's so great about this sport, right? I mean, and speaking of like that, like we have Jesse Tubb, right, who we're going to get to next, and he's one of the fastest guys in the country. And like I have been on courses with him, and I get to see him on course, and I am not one of the fastest guys in the country. So speaking of Jesse, and also like what you are doing, tell us about you and the program that you run.
Yeah, I guess first I want to acknowledge what Alan and Tiara are doing, because Alan, when he first did the Spring Bloom, I was really excited about having some kids come out and do it, and I was trying to get my wife to come out. And what I appreciated about what he did is offered that option of a non-biking category. And that was the only reason why my wife came out and did a race with me, is because she didn't have to go on. Like, she can bike, but she hates it. And so
my wife too.
I love, yeah. So I just want to acknowledge and appreciate what everybody's doing as far as trying, testing things out, adding some variety, doing that 2-hour trekking portion. I think that's great. I think it's wonderful because it allows people to get a taste for it, and I think that's what our sport needs, is to sort of demystify what the sport is and can be for people. So I guess I wanted to start there. So my program, during the pandemic, my 2 teenage kids were drowning in the virtual space, and I really wanted to do something to help them and their friends not only get outside and get active, but also develop some emotional and mental resilience. And so I created this program incorporating a lot of the mindfulness and spirituality and inner working, or any inner work that I have done on myself to deal with my own stress and anxiety that has benefited me. So I incorporated all that into the curriculum to teach these kids through adventure racing. So they send them out in teams by themselves. They get lost. They yell at each other, all the things that we've experienced. And then they come back and we talk about, okay, so you experienced this artificially stressful situation. You had these experiences. You overcame them by hopefully using the tools and the skills we taught them. And then we talk about this resilience transference piece. So how does that show up at home? How does that show up at school with your friends? How do you emotionally regulate so that when you're taking a test, you can regain the confidence and be more mindful in that moment when you're trying out for the play, when you're trying out for the sports teams, whatever it shows up, whatever challenges show up in their life, talking about that direct transference piece. And so what I'm doing now is trying to get more into organizations and schools and sports teams. So I do team development programs where I bring them out for a 2-hour experience, do a real quick map and compass navigation thing. They go out, do team challenges and find checkpoints, and then come back and we talk about how that shows up on the field, and again, that transference piece into the other areas of their life. So I'm trying to broaden the scope of using adventure racing as a vehicle for teaching these valuable life lessons.
Man, that is fantastic. And that it's honestly like we all know like what we learn and what we feel during adventure races, right? And like in the ebb and flow of emotion, both positive and negative, right? And I hadn't really thought about it, about the life lessons that and how you could also like bring this to like your everyday life and how you deal with things. Because if you can go get lost in the woods and find your way out and go through your lowest, darkest points and dig yourself out there, you can also do that in real life. And that's fantastic. Like, that's awesome, Jesse, first of all.
Thanks.
So
And I'll just add one more thing. The interesting thing about it is a lot of times that resilience stays siloed in one area, right? So like we'll go to the gym and be able to crank out extra reps, or we'll go do an adventure race and then come home and then flip off the person who cuts us off, or can't manage the stress. And so for me, having that intentional bridge to take that resilience that we develop in one area of our life into other areas is again, sort of the foundation of what I'm trying to do.
that's awesome. Well, for those of you that don't know, this week there was an article that was posted on USARA that I wrote. I know a little bit about stuff. So I kind of threw it out there because I just wanted to give people a heads up on things that they could be looking for. Like if you're brand new into the sport, I am new in the sport, right? Like I got involved in the pandemic. I had done triathlon for over a decade, had accomplished everything that I wanted to do in that, but looked for another challenge and found it after watching Eco Challenge, which I think brought a lot of people to the sport. And you guys as race directors can attest to that, right? Like a lot of people came out to races because of that show. Well, then, we were blessed with another adventure racing show this year and Arthur the King. And, it really shined a spotlight again on adventure racing and showed people the things that they're not seeing. And so what I've tried to do with AR.watch is to tell people stories, right? Like there are so many stories that happen on the race course, especially in the back of the pack. I mean, the front of the pack, everybody knows what you're doing up there and the suffering that you're going through, but that back of the pack team that is going through this, or the first timers that are out there, like those are the stories that I want to tell. And I look at myself as a storyteller, and that's why I want to be a part of that. And so go on to the USARA page and look for that article. I want to talk a little bit about, because Tiara, you talked a little bit about the expense of this, right? And not everybody has the ability to go out and buy all the things that you need to buy for this. But you can really dumb it down and get in with just the basic stuff, right? Like you need a bike. When you first start out, I recommend for people not to go out and buy the most expensive bike on the market, like, because you don't know what you want or need yet. Go find something on, Facebook Marketplace, or borrow one from a friend, or heck, you can even go to a Trek store and rent one for the weekend for, a couple $100 and, go out and have it for the weekend. What are some things and barriers that like you guys are seeing that racers might have? Jeff, I want to start with you. Like, what kind of barriers do you think that people are having?
And definitely, mountain biking. I mean, I think that, I was, when I met Mike Closer at Eco Challenge, he didn't have some gear, and we started talking about, why don't you have gear? Haven't you been doing this for quite some time? And I started picking his brain about, what does it take to have a winning team? Because, Hunter was growing up and he was really wanting to focus on being winning. And Mike Closer just was like 100% mountain biking. He goes, everybody can walk and everybody can paddle, but if you can't mountain bike fast, you're never going to succeed. And a lot of people that I meet have come from different backgrounds, like triathlons or trail running or whatever. And they just don't have that mountain biking experience. And I always say, get out there and mountain bike. And the best way to do it is to go to your local rental bike shop and rent a true mountain bike. Now, I mean a true one, not something you're going to buy at a discount shop or a bike that's 10 years old. I'm talking about a true mountain bike, $75 a day. Take it, go down to some single track and learn how to ride a true mountain bike. And if your team can progress through a race on a mountain bike, you'll get a lot more done. You'll see a lot more and you'll have a lot better time.
Well, and Alan, I want to kick this to you because this kind of goes into our story, right? Like you and
Yeah.
I met in the middle of the woods at a Quantico orienteering event where I felt like it
We
was a
won't
meme.
mention who was lost.
I don't know who was lost at this point. That's kind of we don't need to talk about that. But I was like, hey, it was like over on the other side of the woods. And then we saw each other at a couple more points, and I was like, hey, when you get done, find me on Facebook, because I had no friends that were doing this. And then Alan and I became such great friends. We've raced together, we've been on the podium together, we've had a great time. And then I go out to their races and cover them as well. So talk a little bit about that orienteering piece.
Yeah, I mean, so the reason we were out there to begin with is I had an upcoming race where I was going to introduce 2 new people to adventure racing, and I just told them, "Hey, we live in a great area here in Northern Virginia where we have the Quantico Orienteering Club. Then if you're down closer to Richmond, there's the Central Virginia Orienteering Club. There's no shortage of orienteering here. Quantico does an event every weekend for like a 6-month period." And I was like, "Hey, I don't want the adventure race to be the first time you guys experience being out in the woods. So let's go do this race." So we went out, did the Quantico event, and that's actually when we ran into Doug and met Doug for the first time. We just happened to be crisscrossing on a course. But the whole reason I was out there was to get them to acclimate to being out in the woods. And I think that's what a lot of people tell me, they ask me like, what are the things you see kind of go wrong when people come out? That's actually probably one of the ones I see the most is people don't like if the race director sends out like a pre-race brief or pre-race rules, and there's a lot of people who are like, they treat it like a 5K or a 10K, and they're like, I'll just show up on race morning. And like, it couldn't be the worst thing you could do to just show up because adventure racing is very different. This year at Spring Bloom, we had a guy, he's probably the fittest athlete I've ever seen. He was wearing a Spartan t-shirt, so you can tell what he does for his. But we started the race. We had like 350 racers this year for Spring Bloom. There were tons of people, and you could see that front group sprinting out. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, he comes back to start finish, and he goes, "Apparently, I need an e-punch." And we were like, he just completely glossed over everything in the morning, ran to the first checkpoint. Everybody else is, we're using e-punches. Everybody else is beeping in. And he's like, what are you guys doing that with? Like he had just completely glossed over the instructions in the morning and had no idea what he was doing. So just getting some kind of sense of what it is you're going to be doing and what you're going to be participating in. Same thing with paddling. There's a lot of people who like never see a boat until race day. Like you don't want to be seeing that stuff for the first time in the middle of a race. And Jeff brings up a good point with the biking too. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people show up with a bike that they haven't touched in months. And then luckily some races will have an on-site mechanic. We have one for our races, but there's only so much he can do, you know, 30 minutes before the race. So you don't want somebody showing up and it turns out their tires are all flat and the bike hasn't been touched and like, oh, now you've kind of almost ruined your experience before you've even gotten started. Just from some basic prep. We're not talking about getting in shape and being super fit. It's just basic stuff. Just make sure you're ready. You know what this is and what you're getting into.
And Tiara, like you guys out there, like I don't know anything about like the support systems that you have with like orienteering clubs. Do you have those in that area?
What's great about the Midwest, I think, is that, we're just a smaller version of everything. And so we are sharing each other's pages and talking it through with, we have Possum Trot out here. And then, we have Tame the Dragon, which St. Louis Orienteering Club puts on. And they do a whole bunch in Missouri as well. But yeah, I think we all try and share each other's events and knowing that if we work together, then, the crossover between the two sports is higher. So yeah, I think we're pretty much in tune with every other race director around here and just sticking together and sharing everything and bridging that gap between orienteering and adventure racing. But I think on the same thing with the bike, funny story, we had 2 guys that bought bikes off Craigslist the night before our race and they showed up and it was a 12-hour race. And they're bombing down like the side of the dam on these Craigslist bikes. And we're just like, oh my gosh, you've never even ridden that before. But they actually did finish and they did great. And so I don't know, sometimes, it all works
Sometimes
out,
you
but
get lucky.
it really, really can go wrong. So yeah, Yes, gear prep is high on the list of things that you need to be doing before you show up for a race. I'm spoken by myself because we raced last weekend and I get there and my rear brake is just like non-existent. And Dad's like, "Hey, just check out the front one." And I'm like, "Yeah, I really don't want to go over the handlebars today," but that's
Hey
what I
guys,
had.
hold on 1 second. For some reason, Facebook Live might have kicked us off.
Let me check ours.
No, I'm on the Warrior page and it said that it ended. I'm gonna try to restart it.
It ended at 21:49. So that was just.
I mean, I just noticed it because it changed. Let me. To all of you out there that are wondering what adventure. Hey, that's me.
Quantico Orienteering Club. Then if you're down closer to Richmond, there's the Central Virginia Orienteering Club. I'll just show up on race morning. And like, it couldn't be the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, we ended right there.
Adventure racing is very different.
With Alan. Alan's was the last one to talk, and then it ended.
Okay. All right, let's see if this will do it again. Hold on.
I just got a message. Yeah, I know. We dropped. Got it.
Yeah, I don't know
All
why.
right, Tiara, from the top.
I know, from the top, guys.
Gotta go all the way back to that.
Oh, I gotta connect the video source again. Stand by.
You know what? While we're in break, so my son Cameron is stationed at Fort Riley, and he calls me one day and he's like, "Dad, there's two guys biking on the road with Mike Closer backpacks on." And I went, "That's probably an adventure race." And he pulls up next to him, and sure enough, they were in your adventure race.
Yeah.
And, so he sent me some pictures from them at a stoplight, and I was like, "Yep, that's adventure race out there. That's brought, you know." And he's like, "That's awesome," you know.
That's too funny. Yeah, we're always real close to Fort Riley.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I'm getting messages. Gotcha. We'll go get
Yeah.
it back.
I don't know
Hey,
what's.
at least that means they were watching, so they're telling you.
Oh.
I know,
Yeah.
right? It's like I don't know if it was a Zoom thing that like stopped the live stream or if it was Facebook.
You said
Was the
something
AI.
bad, Doug.
Apparently. Like now it's not wanting to reconnect to the custom
Hey,
live.
Jeff, I have a question for you. If
Me?
those puppies, are those for the racers or do we have to pay extra for those?
No, those are for the racers.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be a staple at Alaska, Colorado, and C2C. Everybody seems to really like them.
Jesse, you missed out on the hydration packs that
It
bloom this
says
year.
recording, but that's just to side.
Well, that's just the Zoom recording. I mean, like, so we're still recording in here, but like I'm trying to get it to like pull up the live stream thing and it's just spinning. I restarted it.
Yeah, it got us to 21:49. That's it. They cut it off.
Dadgummit.
Mm.
I'm going to end the recording in here and restart it and see if that does anything. Oh, wait, hold on. Update live stream. Let me do that. Let's see if maybe this does it. Stream key. Maybe we can go live again.
Part 2.
I know. I just put continued.
There you go.
Paste. Go live.
Oh, it tried.
I see you live.
Hold on.
Reading says we're streaming.
Okay, so now we're streaming back in here. Let me go into live and we'll go live again. All right, we are live again. Fantastic. Sorry,
There you go.
everyone. We had, for some reason, Facebook didn't like Alan, and so cut off right after what he had to say.
We didn't pay our bills.
Sometimes the lights go off, and that's just what you have to deal with. So let's kick it back to Tiara, who was talking about like what they have in the Midwest. Oh, now you're muted.
Am I on?
You're on
There you
now.
go.
Yay. What I was saying is that, yeah, we work really close with the other orienteering clubs in the Midwest, and we're all pretty, like, we will share each other's posts and that kind of thing, because we know that bridging that gap between orienteering and adventure racing, like, that's a small jump. So those are the people that are like, okay, they're already, interested in something like this. Let's bring them on board to adventure racing. And so I think that's a surefire way to kind of to get people involved.
Yeah, and Jesse, I got lucky and I attended one of your clinics on expedition racing that you put on. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to like get people that maybe are looking to like experience those things for the first time. Like you've done that.
Yeah, and so I just started racing. Nick had asked me to head the Rev3 endurance pro team. And so I'm now the captain of that race team. And as part of that, I pitched to him to put on a series of clinics in conjunction with races that are happening. So next weekend, at that race that you're going to be at on the 6th or the 8th, I'm providing a clinic the night before. So during race check-in, there'll be a 2-hour clinic for beginners and intermediate racers, talking specifically about how to plan and execute the race on Saturday. And then there'll be an hour debrief about like what went well, what could have gone better, what did you learn, how do you now take how do you take the lessons you've learned here, and in the intermediate time between this race and next race, how do you improve? And something I want to sort of piggyback on what Jeff said about the getting out there and mountain biking. If you just get a bike and go out mountain biking, that's great. And, you can spend a lot of time without any improvement, right? It's the 10,000 hours thing. But if you do 10,000 hours of wasted, of non-focused practice, then you're not going to get any better, right? It's intentional, focused practice. So I highly suggest that if you are really serious about getting better at biking, go take clinics, go hire somebody, go ride with people who are better than you, get specific skills, go session specific parts of a trail. And what I've noticed is huge gap in skill level with a lot of adventure racers is just being able to ride over basic rock gardens or obstacles. And it slows you way down. If one person on your team can't stay on the bike, it slows the entire team down. So I think it's well worth the investment to get some clinics in, go find some people who can specifically get you better about, in real specific parts of your biking.
It's so much more fun. It's like ice skating. If you just go out and grab a pair of ice skates and go on the rink, it's not that fun. But if you learn from someone how to do a little bit better on ice skating, it's the same thing with mountain biking. Everyone's, oh, it's just mountain biking, just get on the bike and pedal. That's not the truth. Downhill is completely different. Climbing is completely different. Confidence levels is completely different. And so learning that, and of course, that's probably one of the most dangerous part of an adventure race. You crash on a mountain bike, that's some serious injuries.
Well,
Yeah,
and you
it's
bring
funny.
up a good point, Jeff. That's why it's actually funny. It's what led to us doing the whole no biking division thing. We talked about barriers to entry with cost. If you suck at running, you walk. If you suck at paddling, you paddle slower. If you suck at bike, you crash. That's a big difference in those disciplines. And that mentally for a lot of people is what breaks them down. I see with a lot of teams, and in fact, the team that I normally race with, the difference between the fastest biker and the slowest biker on the team isn't fitness. It's bravery or competence with the bike. Who's willing to go over a certain thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because I talk about in the article about like training with a purpose, right? Like if you're going to go out and trek, don't just go out and walk around your neighborhood. Like go to an area that is going to be like the races that you're going to do. If it's uphill, go hike uphill. do it with a pack on that's heavier than probably what you're going to race with, and get used to that. Because I mean, Chip Dodd talks about that all the time, how he has weighted packs that, you know, he goes out with, and then in the race, even when he's loaded up, it's usually lighter than what he trains with. So it feels easier. You know, I've been lucky because Nick has been my coach. So Nick, you're also a coach. So what do you tell people who come to you?
Nick needs to coach you on how to bike through sand, though.
Well, I wasn't biking at that time, Jeff. I was walking, thankfully. But even I can wreck on a run.
The first step for Doug is to sit on the bike
Yes,
and then start pedaling. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is consistency is key, and just the way the body adapts. It's a lot of metabolic processes, and you need to stimulate them. So if just about every day you're out being active and training in some modality, you're going to be significantly progressing. And so the first thing I tell people is, if you're on a time crunch, get out for 10, 20 minutes. And that is significantly better than not doing anything that day. And even if you're really tired, just keep it light then, but get out and do something. And that's the number one thing. And if you can do that, that's going to really set you apart. And then if you, there's tons of coaches out there. I mean, I use a coach myself because of the accountability piece for me, because I can get lazy, and even though I coach people, I can get lazy. And so it helps hold me accountable. But a coach makes the most efficient use of your time to reach your goals based on your lifestyle and mold it around you. I know Jesse, I believe he self-coaches, and he's super dedicated. And I mean, you see some of his Strava logs, it's like 40-mile bike rides midweek just for fun kind of thing on mountain bikes. And yeah, but you know, for most people, if you get a coach, it's going to benefit you. And the other part is have fun with it. So I know Jesse and I have raced together, and we talked about it. Most people look at like 100 mil to 120 mil suspension bike because they're a little bit lighter and faster and whatnot. I mean, Jesse's one of the fastest guys on the East Coast, I'd say. And Jesse, what's your suspension on your bike?
So I ride a Yeti SB100, and so it's their cross country rig, but it's has a lot more travel than any other bike I've had. I think I don't know, I'm not a data guy, but it definitely has way more suspension than I need for adventure racing. But what I landed on was, I'd much rather have, you know, the proportion or the percentage of time that I'm racing versus riding is so skewed towards the riding side that I'd much rather ride and be able to ride aggressively and not worry about my bike breaking. So I broke 2 Epic, the brains, because I was trying to go light. I was trying to, you know, be ginger with it, and then I would ride hard and then just end up breaking it. So yeah, my bike is definitely beefier and heavier than I could probably, that I need for in a race. But I have one mountain bike.
Well,
So.
I think most people,
Fun.
like, if you can't afford a coach, because like, you know, that a coach is kind of a bougie thing. You know, it's like for people who you have some extra money and you're like, okay, I'll have somebody tell me what to do.
Yeah, Nick's just rolling in the dough. I mean, yeah, just, you know, sure.
But not everybody can afford that. And I would say, like, an alternative to that is having good battle buddies, right? Like people that you're going to go out and train with that keep you accountable for those things. I know back when I was doing triathlon, like I had a coach, but I also had guys that, like, we talked all the time. We would do rides on the trainer together all the time. Like if you're going to go do runs, you go do group runs, you know, so that you have people to do those things with. And I know it's difficult if you're all by yourself and you're like, oh, I watched this movie and now I want to do it. How do I get involved? You do like Alan and I did, and you go find somebody in the middle of the woods and you go, hey, do you want to be friends? And then you're probably going to end up being friends. Like, I mean, I didn't know any of you a couple of years ago, and now I see you at races and it's like, hey, we're family, right? Like Tiara, you talked about that. And I mean, you gave me a ride at C2C this last year, like didn't know me from Adam, but I was like, hey, I don't really want to do this last paddle section. Can you give me a ride to the TA? And you were like, absolutely. So like everybody, like when you get out there, you're going to find in the adventure racing community that people are welcoming and people want to tell you their stories, right? I mean, because nobody hears about our stories most of the time. And I mean, even if you do a race report, you know, on Facebook, unless you're Matt Wilson, who just did like an epic, like 9-page race report, most people, they hit the highlights, but they're not getting to tell the stories. But if you want to learn about this sport, go talk to people, get involved, like go out to races, volunteer. Every one of these race directors here need volunteers. I can guarantee you that. And if you want to find out what it's like, go out and see what it's like. Go out and experience it a little bit. And guess what? Afterwards, like Nick, how many people did you just have last week help you clear the course after it was done?
I think we had 16 people clearing the course.
What?
But
Yeah.
he had people that were
Send them down here. I need help.
I know, because Jeff was just saying he was just out clearing his course from like 3 weeks ago.
You only need two
Yeah.
people. Send like
Make-
another.
But
Make
if you
friends with
want to
people,
get
they come out of the woodwork.
experience of a race without the pressure of a race and go out there, like I took my 2 boys to go clear a Rev 3 6-hour course a couple weeks ago, and they had a blast, and now they want to go out and do a race, right? Like they had an option to go to a baseball game or go to this race, and they were like, Dad, I want to go to the race. So like I think that people, once they get out in the sport, they see what this is about and they see what all of us have experienced, and they want to go do it again.
You know,
Or Doug, can I
go
can I
ahead.
use that as a good segue?
Yeah.
There's something we're almost touching on, and I want to take us there, which is you do not need to be in shape to do this sport, right? Like everybody thinks, like it's a marathon, you have to do 26 miles, right? That's how you do a marathon. But I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially with a lot of the shorter beginner races, it's just a time limit and go get as many checkpoints as you want,
Yep.
right? So our spring bloom race that we just had, 50 of the racers were under the age of 17. I had 20, I'm looking at our stats. 20 other racers were over the age of 60. So it's like it's the whole spectrum of do whatever you want. Some people are going to clear the course. And that means they're going to get every single checkpoint possible. But there's also people who are going to get 10 checkpoints and call it a day, and they may have more fun than the person who's clearing the course. Like you can do whatever level of it you want to do. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't feel like I'm in shape for that. And I'm like, you can literally just get off your couch and go do this. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing that says you have to be a super in shape, fit person.
No, not at all. Doug only gets 3 checkpoints at the C2C, and he has more fun than anybody else.
And
So,
I
rides in the car
laugh,
for
I
half the
cry,
course.
he
I
gets
take
food,
naps.
hotels. He went on I think he went on a river cruise at one point. I don't know. Ron Eglin came up with an idea several years ago. He realized he wasn't going to win anymore. He was not going to be competitive. And what he did was he kind of pimped himself out. And he said, come race with me. And he brought in like 8 people or 7 people to follow him. And I encourage that with you race directors, that if you know somebody in the area that just doesn't want to be that competitive anymore, but it's a veteran of the sport, knows what they're doing, take on the role of mentor to other teams coming in. Sarah did it last year at C2C, had 3 complete newbies. I mean, complete raw newbies. And I looked at them and said, they're never going to finish this race. And they did. They finished the C2C under Sarah. And it was a great experience to learn from a veteran and go out and race with that. And so now I have this like email list of all these veterans that are willing to take on other people. And anytime somebody comes to me with new, I go straight to them. Said, here you go. Because it's free. You don't have to pay a coach. They'll race with you. They'll guide you. And it's just a huge benefit for anybody new to the sport.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we would all like to be as fast as Jesse. And when I go to sleep the night before a race, I think that I'm going to be as fast as Jesse. But most of us are not as fast as Jesse, but we still go out and have a great time. And it is a choose your own adventure race, right? Like it is, you get to write your story. I had a discussion after C2C this last year about what winning means, right? And winning to people like Jesse means I'm winning the whole thing. I'm the first team to finish. Winning for some teams means getting to the finish line. And I mean, I had a friend, Jeff, that was at C2C this last year. Their entire goal was just to get from one coast to the other. They didn't care about any other points. They wanted to go through the checkpoints, go through the TAs, and get what very limited that they could. And now he's already signed up for next year and they already have different goals. Like, so once you go out to these races and do them, your goals will expand because your knowledge will expand. And so it seems insurmountable when you look at it from, holy crap, you're doing a 72-hour race. I mean, I went through that same thing as a triathlete when I did my first sprint race and people were talking about doing an Ironman. I was like, wait, you're swimming for an hour and a half? Are you nuts? Like, I swam for 15 minutes and I was gassed for 2 days. So like, it's all about perspective, and like, go out and experience it and have fun and like do a couple things. And it's funny, Jesse, because you talked about the thing with your wife, like not wanting to bike, but going out and doing this race with you. Did you find that like she would be willing to maybe go do another race that didn't have a bike section?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like
Yeah,
I took
we
my
had a blast.
wife on. I took my wife on the first like virtual race that I did, and she'll never go with me again because she was like, that was miserable. So
What else, a funny story about that race is we were in the canoe section. It was the last section of the race, and we had brought I brought kayak paddles, and she and I go kayaking, so we're in sync, we're rocking it, and we passed these two guys who had canoe paddles, and they look over, and you can sort of see that they're getting ready to say something, and they sort of made a kind of a joke about, oh, you guys must have been prepared because you brought kayak paddles, whatever. And then I was sharing with them that this is her first race, and then they were like, well, we better not lose to you guys. And they started talking smack, like, we better not lose to them. And then we passed them, and then she turns to me, she goes, were they saying that because I'm a woman? I was like, I think so. And she's like, we're gonna kick their ass. And so she dug in. We had the fastest splits on the entire canoe portion, except for one checkpoint because we stopped to get something to eat. It was awesome to see that fire burn in her because she is the yoga acupuncturist, like the peace kumbaya person, and to see her get fired up about kicking those guys' asses, and we smoked them.
That's right.
It was great.
that's awesome. And so Tiara, I mean, like, look, your dad is coming out and he's usually the oldest in the race. Like, tell us your perspective of being that oldest in the race, and how like you go out and just show these young kids like, look, I can do this, you can do it.
Well, I have to start off by saying we started racing in the sport 15 years ago. So he was 60 when we started. And we had already done a whole host of marathons and triathlons, and we had done all the things. And
Wow.
so I raced without him, and he came over to support like my team when I was racing, and he was like, oh, you're never doing this again without me. Like, we are doing this. And so, man, we dug in full speed ahead, and he's done more than me now. And now he races sometimes without me, and sometimes we'll swap. But yeah, almost 75 years old. So tell him what it's like.
We got hooked on the sport, when she took me in that second race. And man, and she said she was hooked, and I thought, yeah, I don't know, it's one race. But let me tell you, yeah, we did that second race as a 4-person team. Her other 2 friends, we're still friends with them, but they were done with it. Well, we continued on, and I just got more hooked and more hooked. And and throughout the years, I've just loved it. And, in the early years, we did really pretty good. Actually, the first year we won our division, the championship race and stuff. And a lot of that was because we finished well, but we attended as many races as we could in that series and did well. And, but the more and more we went, the more hooked I got. And with age, she asked me one time here, just maybe a year or so ago, we were just kind of walking through the woods, setting out checkpoints. She said, Dad, how long do you think you're going to race? And I says, and kind of nonchalant, I said, I'm hoping to go to 80. And she kind of smiled and she said, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I kind of really am. Because I've really been blessed. I've never had any big issues. I did have cancer 5 years ago, mouth cancer, and that was a dilemma, and that took me out a little bit. I recently had an emergency surgery and didn't get to go down.
Hang on, let me interrupt. 4 weeks ago, he had emergency appendectomy, small intestine, and we raced 4 weeks later. Like, I don't know if the doctor actually cleared him. He said they did. But we raced 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Nobody will know
know,
whether or not
man,
he did or not.
We're mid to the backpackers, so I'm not fast by any means, and I'm probably not getting any faster. The only way I think I could get faster is I haven't been able to run much at all lately, and I would hope that maybe by next year I would like to be a little faster on foot, and just to speed up, my results. But let me tell you, just to be able to be out and do it, I'm so blessed. I mean, I've been through that stuff. And I've never ever got to experience anything. When Herd of Turtles, the team that I raced with last year at C2C, when they asked me to go last year to race with them, I thought Tiara would just probably put them up to it because she knew how much I wanted to try a longer.
And I wasn't doing it.
She wasn't going to do it. And she said she ain't going to do any with it. And I thought, man, I just want to try it once in my life before, I can't do it anymore. I want to do it. And and I still, if somebody offered me to go down and race Expedition Arkansas because we're close to that, I say, yeah, I'm going to try it. But listen, I'm getting slower. There's no getting around it. I mean, age can catch up with you. Although I think I can improve.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen,
but I love the sport, and I love what it means to when older people kind of say, man, you're an inspiration. Well, I really want to, I like to be an inspiration, but I really want to be an inspiration for the sport. I mean, I love the sport. And the sad part to me is that I know one of these days that will come to an end. So I need to figure out some way that I can inspire, whether it be kids, older adults, just whoever.
well, I think you are doing that because I remember seeing you at C2C, and that was even before I met your daughter. And I was just like, dude, that guy is awesome. Like, you're out here doing a 3-day race. Like, most people think I'm crazy, for doing it. So, like you are serving your purpose, and what you guys are doing, with your races there, you're inspiring an entire community. So I think as we wrap up, I want to let each of you kind of talk about like maybe some things, if you have something that's like coming up that you want to make sure that people in your area know about, please do. Jesse, we talked about that you're going to be out next weekend at the Rev 3 race, putting on the clinic. Like, that's fantastic for beginners. If you have stuff that where you think that like we should be bringing, like maybe we hold a race that's like bring a friend race, right? Like, you're only allowed to race with another person that has never done adventure racing before. Like, I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out, but like, just to be able to bring more people in, because I think that more and more people that hear about it, I mean, I have coworkers that have never even heard of adventure racing, and I lead them over to AR.watch, and I'm like, hey, look what I just, covered over the weekend. They're like, wow, that looks really cool. So talk about what you have going on and like what you hope to do with your program. So Jesse, I'll start with you.
Sure. So yeah, I just retired from the Army in March to do more of this this programming full time. And so I would love, free to travel. I would love to work with organizations and sports teams, and schools. So if you know of a program that is looking for some sort of like either all-day programming or even multi-day adventure race themed programming, I am available to come out and support that. But locally, like I said, I'm doing more with Rev 3 now and hoping to get information and education out to intermediate and beginning adventure racers.
Awesome. We'll stick to Rev 3. Nick.
Yeah, Doug. So I think for us, we have in 2 weekends the Seven Bends Adventure Race, which is a 6-hour in Virginia. And it's designed as a beginner level race. So some races are kind of tiered at different difficulties, and that one's there. And Jesse will be there with the clinic. So it's a great one for anybody kind of within a couple hours drive to come down. And
I'll be
there's
there with my
camping there,
5 and
so
7-year-old.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun course, and it'll be good. And then in the fall, we have our Shenandoah River State Park Adventure Race, which is usually our second biggest event of the year behind the 50-hour. And so that one's all abilities there as well. And then one thing we also have are our Rev3 ambassadors. So those are experienced racers who are on the course helping other people as they're racing. And so, yeah, just look forward to all of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing Jesse as he's developing our pro team and also as we grow his clinics, because I've raced with him and he's mentored me before, and his knowledge, understanding, and the ability to teach is fantastic.
I agree. Tiara, what do you got coming up?
Alrighty, let's see. We have Midwest Championship June 22nd. That's going to be 2, 6, and 24-hour courses. They actually, I think, are entry level for every 2, 6, 24. I think you would be okay because you can shorten them in a gazillion different ways. Then we have Dusk Till Dawn, which is July 27th. This is awesome. It's all on foot. It starts at 9 o'clock at night, ends 9 o'clock the next morning, so people don't have to race 24 hours to try out that nighttime navigation.
That's
All
awesome.
on foot.
What,
So
first
everyone
of all,
can do it.
I think that's fantastic because
Yeah.
the first time that people start talking about going at night, they get scared as shit, right? Because they're like,
Yep.
I don't know how I'm going to do this. I love racing at night, probably more than I like racing during the day, because I feel like you're so more hyper focused, except when I passed out. Jeff, don't bring it up.
I'm not.
I saw the look on your face though.
No. I was thinking about coming. You should come down to the cauldron. At
Listen,
night.
the cauldron would be awesome because I just want to jump out and scare people during that race.
We have 9 volunteers from last year's video. They watched it. Now we have 9 volunteers that want to dress up. So
That's
we're
awesome.
gonna have a lot more scare.
So sorry, Tiara. I just think that's an
That's
awesome
okay.
concept to just have like an overnight
Yeah.
race.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. The Dusk Till Dawn has always been a traditional adventure race with mountain biking and then canoeing. But honestly, that time of summer around the lake that we use is really busy and kind of sketchy. So I'd like to just keep them all on foot, and it's perfect, and everyone's super excited about it. And then our traditional, our namesake race is the off-road race November 2nd in Lebanon, Missouri. And that's going to have the 2, 6, 12-hour courses as well. So yeah, we're just incorporating the shorter distances into every single one of the races we put on. It's easy to bring that 2-hour course in, and that's where we're bridging the gap.
Well, I'll have to try to get AR Dot Watch out on one of your courses soon.
Love that.
Yeah.
Alan, I know you got fall foliage coming up.
That's right, on October 19th. And actually, just this morning, it got announced that the 14-hour at Fall Foliage is going to be the first regional qualifier for next year for USARA. So we haven't even had the national championship yet this year, but a month after this year's national championship, the season for 2025 starts. So the winning 3-4 co-ed team is going to get an auto entry into next year's national championship. But bringing up that race is good because that's a race where we really try to cater to both sides of it. So we try to help people graduate up. So we've got a 4-hour race on it. We've actually already got 20 family teams entered in the race. The one thing I probably haven't mentioned already is every adventure race we've done for the last 5 years has sold out. So I see no reason why this one probably won't do that too. So it'll probably be 300 racers out there between the 4-hour and the 14-hour. But this is a very good race for people, not only to get their first adventure race, but if it's somebody who hasn't biked before, the biking course for the course this year is pretty much all gravel and paved trails. So we've told people, hey, if this is your first time biking, this is the one to do it with. The 14-hour race is a different story. They're going to be on some serious trails, but the 4-hour race, this is a good one to get introduced in. So that race will always, as always, we have a food truck at the end, and we always feed you well at the end, and all good fun stuff going on with that. And then the other thing, if I didn't mention it before, we're actually a nonprofit, so we donate all of our race proceeds away. This is a hobby that we all kind of do on the side. Look for what we're doing next year. We're not announcing it yet, but we're working on big plans for spring bloom and fall foliage next year. We're planning on actually starting using the proceeds next year for spring bloom to start a gear closet for one of the local high school adventure clubs that you've probably seen about recently. But that's what we'll be doing. So come see us at Fall Foliage, and we'll be doing spring and fall for the near future.
Yeah, listen, if you're already doing nationals, you're in shape. Just like eat a cheeseburger and then go over and do his race in October after you're done. And Jeff, so I mean, Hogback is the perfect opportunity, I think, for people to come out and just experience 2 different days of racing. Like maybe you're on the fence on doing multi-day. This is a good opportunity to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think adventure racing has evolved in the sense that, even though, we only have the shortest race we have is an 8-hour. And I think that a lot of people are, confused on, oh, I can't do the 8 hours. But you can actually come out and just do half of it. You can do whatever you want. You come out and get a couple of checkpoints at each discipline and call it a day. And we encourage people like that, like the new to the sport. Don't worry about the 8 hours. We have 9 designers now across the board for Warrior, and we've pretty much put a format in place to design sort of like 3 different races inside one race. You've got the elite race. It's going to be the really hard checkpoints to go to. You get the middle of the pack teams, and then you have these beginners that seriously, it's a checkpoint right outside the TA. And you can ride from each TA or transfer yourself for each TA, go out and get 1 or 2, whatever you feel comfortable with, and continue on. And if you want to quit at 4 hours in an 8 hours, no big deal. We'll be there. We'll be at the finish line, and you've experienced whatever you want through that race. So all of our race designs are sort of going straight to that format. And we're hoping it works out for us.
Well, and listen, I mean, you're talking about an 8-hour race, right? Like I'm doing a 6-hour race at 7 Bends with my 5 and 7-year-old. So if my 5 and 7-year-old can find a way to get through 6 hours, and listen, it might mean an hour, sit and like snack for an hour, then go out for another hour, have
Picking
lunch
flowers.
for an hour. Yeah, like it might only be 3 hours of actual racing, but we'll be out there and like just get out there and have the experience.
Yeah, a lot of. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say a lot of people will take their kids out for 8 hours walking around like Disney World or something, and so it's not that much different. You can literally like walk around and eat a cheeseburger or whatever, Oreos on the course. I love Oreos. So whatever you eat on the course, and just like if you slow down and walk, you can go for a long time, and really all ages can do that.
That day I took my kids out to clear the side of your course. I mean, we were out there for almost 4 hours just trekking, right? So now we're going to introduce biking and some paddling. So like the kids aren't going to be bored. And if my 5-year-old can go out and do it, you can do it. So listen, I want to thank all of you for being a part of this panel. I think that we need to continue to push to try to keep more people interested in finding out how to do more races. And you guys are all on the cutting edge of that. And I appreciate it. I hope that people learn something tonight, and then, go out and look up these races, find where you can go to get out and get the experience of just being out on the course. I talk about all the time with AR.Watch that it's about going out and living the adventure. And that's what I want everybody to realize, is that it's much easier than you think. And there are ways to find out whatever limitation that you have. There are ways to go out and do it. Old, young. I mean, I have a fused ankle, like out of shape, doesn't matter. You can get out and do this. And I'm telling you, it will change your life because it changed mine. I'm very grateful for the adventure racing coming into my life. And I hope that you will be too. So we'll look forward to bringing you the next AR101. It'll probably be after Hogback, and we'll get to talk about Hogback. And
I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, though. I want to talk about your man crush on Jesse down there.
Who doesn't have a man crush on Jesse?
Jealous of that shit.
Who doesn't have a man crush on Jesse?
I mean, you must have dropped 20 comments about him. What the hell?
Well,
I hate him well. I hate him well.
When you're that fast and also that humble and approachable, like it happens. So you're neither of those, Jeff. That's why I don't talk about you like that.
Damn it.
We do love your donut smoothies though, Jeff.
Yes.
Oh, donut smoothies.
We need to bring smoothies to Warrior courses. I'm still on that bandwagon.
Maybe C2C. How about snow cones?
No,
ice cream truck.
We want smoothies, Jeff. Everybody heard about your smoothies. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you for joining us. Thank you guys on Facebook. Continue to follow Warrior. Follow all of these people on Facebook and Instagram. We got Off-Road Rage. We got Rev3. You've got Broad Run Off-Road. Follow them. Get out to their races. We hope to see you out there. Continue to live the adventure. Thank you, guys.
See you guys. Thank you.